Hello,
I am Mike,
and I am Adrian.
and we are young doctors from the Philippines.
If this is your first time to join us, we talk about anything related to pre-med, med proper, clerkship, internship, PLE, USMLE, and beyond.
Welcome to the Better Pill, your weekly prescription of tips and insights to become better students
Better interns.
and better doctors. What's up, better doctors?
What's up, better doctors? What's up, bro? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depende kung nasan sulok sa mundo kayo.
Kung nasa Mars man kayo or nasa Moon, good morning.
Yes, actually, our episode today, it's a response to one of our listeners kasi may nag-message sa amin and he is an incoming medical student. Although yung background niya, non-medical. So, hindi siya yung traditional medical student who took up a science course then proceeded to medicine. So, we thought of inviting, and we are very fortunate or very lucky na inaccept niya yung invitation namin. So, bro, can you please introduce our guest for today?
Yes, we will now introduce our speaker. Our speaker earned his bachelor's degree in classical music performance from Rutgers University in 2006. He completed 2 world music tours, wow, and was an active freelance musician in New York City, New Jersey, and Connecticut before deciding to pursue medicine. He graduated from the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery in 2020, where he was the Medical Student Council External Vice President. He is currently in the US preparing to take the USMLE exams. Additionally, he is the Chief Executive Officer of his own company, LMG Homes Inc, a corporation which operates 2 intermediate care facilities for the intellectually disabled. He is also one of the founding board members of the 501c3 nonprofit ZBM International Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Aaron Lau.
Hello, Aaron.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. We are very lucky to have you today. So, how are you, Aaron?
I'm good. Another day of studying and work and preparing for the USMLE.
How is the COVID situation right there in Nevada, in Las Vegas?
It's good. Our vaccination rate is above 50%, so slowly and steadily we're approaching herd immunity. We haven't had any social distancing or mask mandates since the beginning of June, and our cases have still been on the decline, so I would say we're doing pretty well.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's the goal right there.
It's nice to be back to normal.
Yeah, you haven't been wearing masks for months already, right?
Yes, since June 1. Well, technically May 1, but legally June 1.
Wow.
I hope we can also reach that state here in our country soon, Sibs, bro.
Slowly but steadily.
Yeah. The vaccination efforts have been picking up, so hopefully within the next year or so.
Uh-huh.
So again, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. We're very lucky, and I know we have a lot of incoming medical school freshmen whose background is non-medical. So can you please tell us a bit about yourself? I mean, what's your story? Just to give our listeners a background on yourself and your experience prior to medicine.
Yeah, so I went to school at Rutgers University. I pursued a degree in classical music performance on trombone. And after graduation, I was working mostly in New York City, playing on Broadway and Carnegie Hall, and, just doing the music scene and really enjoying my time until about 2009 when the country hit a slight depression and work became scarce. And so at the time, I really wanted to have a family, and I started to realize that the money that I make as a musician wasn't enough to really support a family, not comfortably at least. So that's when I moved to California to join my family, and they started to push me towards medicine. And after several years, I finally accepted and decided to, pursue the course. And that's basically it. I applied, I got in, and now I'm here.
Wow. So, your reasons were more of practical. You're
Oh
going
yeah,
into medicine.
yeah. Well, my whole life I've always been about helping people
Mm.
in one way or another, whether it's tutoring or training or anything. But with medicine, it offered me the opportunity to help them at a whole new level. So even though it wasn't my first choice of a career, it was still a great way to pursue kind of what I feel like is my life calling.
Wow.
So when your parents told you to take up medicine, you realized your calling was there? Was that like
No,
that?
I wouldn't say so. I always fought them on becoming a doctor because that's what they all expected and wanted from me. But once I decided to just give it a try, it's kind of been no looking back, just straightforward and no regrets. I'm actually really grateful that they pushed me into this field because there's nothing like it.
Exactly. Asian parents, it's either you become a doctor or a lawyer, that's it.
Or a
Right?
priest?
Or a priest. So your background is totally non-medical, classical music,
Non-medical at
trombone,
all. Yes.
at all. So back in college, did you, I mean, did you even take like even the most basic science courses, or did you have to take this prior to entering into medicine? Because, we understand that your background is totally non-medical.
Well, in school, when I was doing my music degree, we did have a large portion of our courses that were considered liberal arts courses. So
Mm-hmm.
we could take courses in any type of science or any field that we were interested in. So I took everything from geography to archaeology, just a whole bunch of different topics just to kind of learn a little bit about everything so I would have an idea about what people were talking about. I wasn't just
Yeah.
one track straight on
Mhm.
music. And then when I went to apply for medicine, of course we had to take the NMAT. And when I was first introduced to it, I wasn't sure what it was. I said, "What's the NMAT?" They said, "Oh, just take it. You have to take it if you want to go to medicine." Okay. So I signed up, showed up for the test. And when I left, I was talking to my sister and she said, "How did it go?" And I said, "Either I did really good or I did really bad." Because, every part A, everybody knows, that's just kind of common sense. It's the English, it's the math,
Yeah.
it's not so hard, the
Mm-mm.
shapes. But part B, that all the science, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that was just guessing and guessing. I didn't know what half of the words meant.
So you went to the Philippines just to get the examination in NMAT?
No, actually, they gave the NMAT in LA.
Oh.
Yeah, they do that, yeah.
Okay.
Did you have to take science courses, subjects prior to entering med, or was that even a
Well,
requirement? Is that a requirement for?
I guess technically, no, it's not a requirement, but I did have a meeting with the assistant dean at the time, and she suggested, being that my background is in music, she suggested that I take a year and take science courses because she said, "Oh, there's no way you're going to pass. You don't know what anything is." And I was like, "Okay, well, yeah, that's kind of true."
There's no way.
So that following year, I took 1 year of courses at USD Bio, and I took all
Oh.
of the majors in 1 year for
Oh,
all 4
okay.
years.
All right.
So it gave me a bit of a basic understanding of science and gave me a little bit of a background. But I'll tell you, on the first day of med, none of it helped. None of it helped. Yeah, I remember the first day of biochem SGD. I was just listening to everyone talk, and everybody was saying different medications and talking about disease, and I said, "Oh my god, I'm in trouble."
Yeah, because even for us who have a strong background in the sciences, in the life sciences, in medicine, it's already very hard, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
how much more for somebody whose background is totally not related to medicine.
Yes.
So how was the transition? Yeah, you said the first day of the SGD was very. So how was your? Can you please tell us a bit about your transition during the
Yes.
first year of medicine?
So the first week was really difficult. I had no idea what was going on in most of the classes. I was pretty much lost the whole time. The only thing I knew was they gave us these handouts and that I had to read them. And by the start of the second week, I still wasn't getting anything. I wasn't getting anything out of lectures or SGDs. So I approached my FASI. I said, "Doc, I need help. I don't know what's going on in class." And he asked me about my background, and I told him, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have a hard time." So I asked him, "What should I do? What do you suggest?" And he said, "Read your handouts at least 5 times." I said, "5 times? That's a lot of reading." And he said, "Yeah, you need to do it, but don't worry. As time goes on, it'll get easier. But just study hard in the beginning, and you'll catch up." And I said, "Okay." So for that first shift, I really studied as much as I could. From the end of class to the close of Starbucks, I was there studying. But it did pay off. He was right.
5 times.
Did reading 5 times help?
It did. I might not have understood it, but I would remember random facts that came out on quizzes. So it helped.
Can you tell Aaron, when was the time that you were on the groove or you're on the rhythm in medicine? Was it after 1 month?
Yeah, when
2
did you get the
months?
hang
Yeah.
of
The hang
medicine?
of it, yeah.
I think by the start of second shift. First shift or the first like 2 or 3 months was mostly about just kind of getting my routine down and getting used to studying so much. Because prior to medicine, I thought, okay, 2 to 3 hours a day, I'll be okay. And when you get to medicine, you find out that's nothing. That's just a warm up. So when I got adjusted to studying the whole day, then I kind of found my groove. And by the time second shift rolled around, after having to study for all those shifting exams, I kind of knew what I had to do and how to get it done.
Can you say, Aaron, the first shift or the first quarter of medicine from a non-traditional med is really difficult?
It is. Luckily, it's really the basics, so you don't have to get too far into things. But it's very much a culture shock, especially if you don't come from a medical background or science background.
And how were your grades, Aaron, during the first shift?
I think first shift, they actually were okay. They weren't the best, but I passed. And eventually, that's all I really needed to do was just pass.
Can you at least tell us about your routine during the first shift, at least to give the incoming non-traditional med students an idea on what they are to face when they enter medicine? Because you said it's really very challenging and it's a steeper climb for you guys compared to those with a strong med background.
Oh yeah. Really, the main thing is to develop a routine of studying, because that's the most important thing, especially so early in the game. You have to get the basics down before you can understand anything else. So for first year, I think we started at 7 a.m. and we'd be done around 4 p.m., 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
after we get out of class for the day, go home, take about a half hour to an hour to kind of relax and eat. And then I'd pack up my things and I'd head to Starbucks and I'd study there until close, which was about 12 o'clock. So from 5 or 6 p.m. until 12 o'clock every day. And then weekends, try to get at least 6 hours, whether it's in the morning or if I break it up 3 and 3, just try to get 6 hours of solid reading. What I found was it's not really about the reading, but it's kind of trying to put everything together and make sense of what is being said in the handouts. Because I mean, you can memorize every word, but if you don't really understand what it means, it doesn't help you in exams.
That's what we are talking about the previous episodes, right? Understanding first before memorizing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and you really need to have a strong foundation of the basics for you to understand, because knowledge in medicine, it builds upon the foundation that you have laid. So it's really very important, like you said, the basics and the foundation.
Aaron, may I ask, during your first shift, the hardest shift for a non-med student, is it normal to think of ending your medical career because of the hardships? Is it normal for non-med?
Um, Maybe for other people, I've never been that type of person to, if I put my mind to something, I was always going to accomplish it. There was never any question or any doubt. Maybe I'm built differently or I think differently from everyone or a lot of people, but if I make up my mind to do something, I'm gonna do it, and I don't care what it takes. I'll get it done. So there was never any question about if I can do it or if I wanted to do it. I had already decided, so I was just gonna do it.
It boils down to the mindset, right? If you have the good
Yeah,
right
and that's the
mindset.
right
Oh yeah.
mindset to just finish what you started, right? So
Hmm.
never in your entire med school journey did you think that, you're gonna quit or that you weren't
Never.
cut for it. Never.
Yeah, not once.
Wow.
Wow.
And
That's
that
a
is, I think, the mindset that we should be having in any endeavor for that matter.
Definitely. We're a lot stronger than we like to let ourselves think we are. Once you kind of let go of that mentality, the sky's the limit.
Exactly. So it was only the first shift which was really hard. And after that, after you've crossed the first shift, it was, would you say it was downhill from there, or it just plateaued,
I
the difficulty level just plateaued, or how would you describe it?
I don't think I'd ever describe medicine as downhill once we start.
Yeah.
It's always going to be an uphill battle. But, after the first shift, once you get that routine down, I think that's the most important part. You learn how to deal with all the studying and what's expected of you. So you just, okay, I have to do this, I'll go do it.
You were a well-rounded student. You were not just, focused on academics, right? Because you were part
Yes.
of the student council and you had an organization and you were active in them, right? So, how did you manage to find the time for other activities? Did you start during the first shift, or was it after the first shift that you decided to go into extracurricular, affairs?
I would say during third shift, during Palarong Med, that's when I was first introduced to the duties of student council. And so I wasn't really looking at being active so much in the school or with any organizations until about that time when they asked if I was interested. And I said, okay. And so I started to spend more time around the student council to see what was required or what needed to be done for the school so that if I decided to run, I would know what I was doing. After that, after the summer after first year, that's when I started to look at what would my plan be after med school. And of course, for all of us, that's going to be residency. And what I found out after studying and looking up what program directors look for, they like to see that you have a strong CV, that you were involved in a lot more things than just going to school. So that's when I started to be more involved with other activities or organizations and trying to build my CV as much as I could.
So while you were in med school, you were thinking 5 years ahead.
Always, always. I have short-term goals, 5-year, 10-year plan. I have my retirement planned.
So, Would you recommend non-traditional med students to also be active in non-academic activities? And can you share some tips on how you manage to, find the balance, find the time for other activities? Because of course, coming from a non-med background, I guess you'll have to spend more time, right? Compared to the
Mm-hmm.
average traditional student. I guess you'd have to spend more time studying. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I would definitely recommend getting involved in other orgs or sports or anything that you can find, but only if your time allows you to. I mean, you have to, bottom line, you need to graduate. So if these orgs get in the way of your studying and your grades start suffering, you need to take a step back and focus on school. Because the number one thing is we need to graduate. Right? We can't be anything without that MD. So that's number one, is to take care of your grades. But if you can find the time to be a part of an org, I definitely recommend it, because networking and the people you meet, the experiences you have will all play a role into what kind of person you become at the end of the 4 years. So I think that's really important. And to manage your time, definitely make a schedule. I think it was mentioned by somebody else in an earlier episode of the podcast that they had a schedule or an organizer of how they did things. And, that's really smart, because time management is key.
Super agree with you on that. Time management is really key in medical school and in life for that matter.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron, can you share for a short time, how do you manage your time? Do you have a special app, special notebook? How is it? How do you manage your time?
Basically, I just keep a basic 30-day calendar, and I just put all of my appointments or anything that I have important to remember, any meetings. I put it there so I don't forget about it.
Is it a
Because especially right
hard
now,
paper? Is it a hard copy of a
yeah, I just use hard paper. I'm old school. I'm old, so that's how I do things. I don't use technology as much as I should. But as far as studying, I have chapters planned out, and I have dates of when I take NBMEs and UWorld assessments. So I kind of it's ever changing. As things come up in my life, I have to make adjustments. But as long as I have some sort of schedule to stick to, at least I know at the end I'll have everything done and I won't be panicking or rushing.
Yeah, it's really good to have things planned ahead and organized. And sorry, Aaron, you said you're old. I'm sorry if you don't mind me asking. How many years did it take for you? I mean, how many years the gap between graduating from college and medicine? Because there are also a lot of you know people who want to go into medicine, but they think
they're
they're
hesitant.
yeah, they're hesitant because they think they're old, or they spend too much years already outside of school. And do you have any advice for
I think
them?
bro should use the word mature, not old.
Yeah.
Either is okay. I'm not offended. But it was 10 years
10 years
from
from
graduation of
college.
my bachelor's degree until I started medicine. So 10 years. It's kind of awkward at first to go to school and have everybody be so much younger than you. But at the same time, like I said before, I had made up my mind that I wanted to become a doctor. So I did it. I just didn't care if everybody was younger. Didn't matter. I was just jealous of everyone for starting so early and finding their calling so early. But I didn't feel awkward. I didn't let it become an issue, because it doesn't have to be. Age is just a number, right?
True, exactly. So, would you recommend those who are planning to go into medicine, even those who were out of the university for more than 5 or 10 years, is it still a wise idea to go into medicine
Yeah,
at
why
that
not?
stage?
Why not? If that's what you want to do, if you want to spend your life helping people and treating people, and that's what you want to do, then by all means, go for it. There's no reason. Don't let age be a factor in why you didn't do something you wanted to do with your life. We only get one shot at this, so you might as well try.
You only have one life.
And medicine, it's a very fulfilling and rewarding field to be in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So age, it's not a barrier at all. And I think with your experience, right?
I think Aaron exploited his age. He used it
Yeah, I think
into
you
his
can,
advantage.
your
Yeah.
maturity level, yeah, you can use it to your advantage in medical school. And you offer a different perspective to the student body and, to your peers, to your classmates. And I think it's nice to have somebody with that level of maturity in a group.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not always appreciated in my viewpoint, but it's okay. We're all entitled to our own opinions. But, we come from different generations, so it's more than expected. So it's fine.
Was there any instance where students ask help from you? Maybe non-med related stuff or something like that?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember any actual instance where they asked for something non-med related. But I did have an issue outside of the school once where I did end up helping a stranger, but that's about it.
Okay, if you have the top 3 challenges that you met in your med school journey, the top 3 most challenging situations or hurdles that you had to overcome in your journey to become a doctor, can you please share this to our listeners too?
I think number 1 would be the culture shock of learning to study so much and really dedicate all of that time and have to make decisions between times when you can go out with your friends or if you're going to stay home and study. It's a bit of making a responsible choice, but sometimes you have to give up freedoms that you're used to. So that kind of culture shock is definitely the first hurdle. 2 would be some of the harder subjects that we take in med, especially from a non-science background. There are going to be more difficult subjects like
Can we know
histology,
the hardest subjects
pathology.
for you?
Probably pathology.
Hmm.
When you're not used to looking at the microscope and looking at slides, everything looks the same. So I would say histology would, tie in with that also. Because a lot of things look the same, so you really have to study and focus on finding what differentiates everything from each other. And number 3, I would say just learning for me at least, being a Phil-Am, the culture of the Philippines was a challenge. There are certain ways things are done in the Philippines that I wasn't used to. I had to learn how to do it the Filipino way, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Number 1, the culture shock. Number 2, the difficult subjects, of course. And then the Filipino culture for you, right?
Yeah.
So on top of adjusting to medical school, you also had to adjust to the Filipino
culture.
way of life, the culture, right? So it's even harder for you. But you managed it, and that's amazing.
You also adjust to the diet, right? So do you eat rice in States?
Yeah. The food. How about the food?
Oh, wow.
Did it become a problem?
My dad's side is Kapampangan, so I grew up on rice and Filipino food, so that wasn't much of a change for me when I went there.
Do you have any regret? No, your number 1 regret during your med school, if you have?
I think my number 1 regret would be mostly about the age that I started. Wouldn't be anything about med school itself, because I'm very thankful for even getting my degree. But I think my number one regret would just have been starting so late compared to everyone else. But at the same time, I'm very grateful because seeing everybody be so young and motivated to become a doctor motivated me as well to keep going. So it was almost inspirational to see everybody become doctors at such a young age.
Would you have done anything differently in how you approached or your strategies in medical school, looking back?
I think when we started, there wasn't much of those things around.
Mm.
I personally tried using first aid, but I didn't find it useful in the sense that first aid is kind of written as more of a reference book than a teaching book. Personally, I find that the Kaplan books are a lot more helpful if you're trying to learn a subject rather than trying to refer to first aid, because first aid doesn't really give you much explanation. It's just a list of facts.
Sort of just an outline, right? Like a detailed
Correct.
outline.
So I didn't really utilize first aid that much. And now I'm using it a lot more. But I've already built that foundation, so it's more of just review. But I think if I could do it over again, maybe I wouldn't have tried to use first aid so much and carry that book around.
During med school.
I think I would.
Yeah.
I think I would have just focused on the handouts that they gave, because the exams were completely based off the handouts.
Yeah.
Everything was there. And I wouldn't have tried to rely on so many different reviewers.
So, thank you very much, Aaron, for your message. Very inspiring, especially for our incoming first year med from non-science backgrounds. And thank you for sharing your insights, your perspective in life, in medicine. They're really very helpful and valuable to us. Thank you so much for your time. Any final message to our listeners? Especially the incoming freshmen.
Yes. Well, first off, thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really honored and flattered that you even thought of me to be on this podcast. But for the incoming first years and anybody looking to pursue medicine without a science background, if you want it, go for it. Don't let anybody stop you. Just keep going, keep trying, and you'll get there. We all have different paths that might take you longer than other people, but the end goal is the same, to become a doctor. And if you can make it there, then you were successful. So just keep going.
Wow. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Adrian, I learned two things in this episode. Number one, you should have a short-term goal and a long-term goal like Aaron Lau. And number two, if we have a good right mindset, anything will be on track.
Yeah. Goals and mindset. As for me, what I learned, well, not really learned from Aaron, but this principle was reinforced by Aaron's story. And this advice was given to me by Dr. Dapoy when I asked him for some advice when I was reviewing for the PLE. He said, don't be afraid to not fit the mold. You don't have to fit the mold, really, because we all have our own stories. We all have different backgrounds, and we don't strive to be mundane or mediocre or average. We have our own story. This is our life. We're the authors of our own book, so we don't really have to fit a mold. So, and that's exactly what Aaron's story is about, no? Not fitting the mold. And, right?
Yeah.
So, again, Aaron, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We're
you.
Really honored and really glad. Really appreciate it. Once again, this has been Adrian.
And this has been Mike. Catch us again next week for your refill prescription of
The Better Pill.